When it comes to listing some of the most diabolical kids on animated TV, we will have to give Stewie Griffin and Eric Cartman some accolades. These kids are chaos personified, and the sheer amount of terror they commit is an integral part of their shows. But when it comes to pure evil, who sits on the throne? Well, we will let you decide, as we pit them against each other with 10 diabolical moments. First on our list is Stewie Goes for a Drive, and his episode just goes to show that no one, not even Brian, is safe from this toddler's terror. The episode begins with Stewie swiping Brian's car keys and deciding to go on a good old jolly ride. What even makes it crazier is the fact that he hits the road like he is playing a mission on GTA Quahog. But hey, it's Stewie. Everything can go chaotic in mere seconds. So, the charade begins when Brian lets Stewie chill in his car and listen to some Carrie Underwood.
I took a Louisville slugger to both headlights. I slashed a hole in all 4 tires.
Oh, Stewie, a little destruction with your tunes? We're here for it, but maybe dial it down with the vehicular manslaughter playlist next time. But still, respect for going full throttle into chaos. Quite funny, yeah? 'Cause what's a baby doing listening to some breakup anthem? Well, apparently there's some deeper reason to the whole song, as he continues to drive like a maniac through the town. In fact, it was like he was turning the whole thing into a demolition derby.
Oh my god, I just drove. Oh, that was amazing! I can drive!
Of course, Stewie, you can drive. All you need to do is step on the gas and you are good to go. You don't even have to worry about the damage. 'Cause what's next after conquering walking, talking, and scheming world domination? Now, this prompts Stewie to get that feel of driving again, and this time, he goes to steal Brian's keys while he was working on a novel.
Alright, let's see. New novel. What's it about? A guy who loses everything, but finds his soul in Canada.
Maybe Brian should start keeping his car under lock and key? Or at least install a GPS tracker to keep up with Stewie's adventures. As Stewie drives off, it's clear that driving is a new frontier for him, but not exactly a safe one.
Look at me, I'm driving! I'm driving a real car!
But the thrill got to Stewie's head, and before he knows Jack, he looks away from the road and drives into a street lamp. Oh, how does it feel to drive now, Stewie? Once Brian finds his Prius in ruins, he goes to challenge Stewie straight up. Well, surprise, surprise, Stewie's not exactly a master of cover-ups.
What the hell? Stewie, get out here! Look at this! Do you know anything about this?
About what? About what a beautiful date? Oh my god, that is surprising!
The classic play dumb until you're caught routine. Stewie's denial game is strong, and clearly, he's learned a few things from watching politicians trying to cover up scandals.
Stewie, I know it was you.
Of course, Brian's not buying Stewie's performance. He was going to report to Lois and Peter, but Stewie begs him not to.
No, you can't tell them. I'll be in so much trouble.
Well, you deserve it, especially after what you did. But in a shocking move, Brian takes the high road and lets it slide. Is he softening, or does he realize that trying to discipline Stewie is like trying to tame a hurricane? Either way, Brian's lucky that Stewie didn't borrow the car to take a detour through the neighbor's pool. In the end, Stewie may have dodged a bullet this time, but Brian better start thinking about installing a breathalyzer lock on his car, because next time, Stewie might just take it off the road entirely. Okay. While Stewie might be evil, Eric Cartman takes it to another dimension. In Fatbeard, Cartman decided to take his evil machinations to another level when he declared that he's now a pirate. Oh, and he's recruiting young boys like himself to go on a reckless adventure to Somalia. Cartman first pitches his wild idea to the boys with characteristic overconfidence.
Haven't you assholes been watching the news? Pirating is back, my friends. Swashbuckling adventure on the high seas. The stuff we've all dreamed about.
It's funny because only Eric can romanticize modern-day piracy as a dope lifestyle. Like, for real, he was all hyped about the treasures he could find. Despite all of this, his arch nemesis, Kyle, doesn't seem all hyped about the adventure. Does that shake Eric's resolve? Nah, he had his sights set out and he was going to recruit a band of misfits for his perfect pirate club. Well, unless you are unworthy.
The invitation is open to any student who wants to be a pirate and who isn't Jewish, Mexican, or ginger. Arrgh.
It's so obvious that Eric Cartman can be as bigoted as hell, because what are those restrictions? Bro must think it's the 1600s. Once they arrive, well, let's just say that reality hit them like a female dog. Instead of crystal clear lagoons and buried gold, they're greeted by poverty, starvation, and dilapidated boats. But Eric doesn't give up. In fact, he refuses to accept the reality of things.
This is your pirate boat? Dude, the fuck?
Eric's delusion is impenetrable. Undeterred, Eric commandeers a tiny boat and begins terrorizing the seas with his newfound crew. His first act of villainy? Hijacking a ship and forcing its crew into lifeboats.
Quiet, you sons of biscuit eaters! This boat is now pirate property! Now get ye to your lifeboat, lest you wanna be shark bait! Plunder the booty, lads!
It's hard to say what's more disturbing, Eric's glee at his newfound power, or his complete disregard for the humanity of his victims. Soon enough, it got to be the point where Eric's followers began to question his character. They even met a Somali boy who told them what it was like to be a pirate. The fear, desperation, and all.
How can you not want to stay in this paradise we've created? In Somalia, people have no laws, they have no rules, and they never grow old!
Let's just say that reality dawned on them like the morning dew. Yeah, guys, wake up. As the group splinters, Eric refuses to budge and insists he is not going to abandon his dream of being a pirate. Way to go, bro. Of course, the reason they never grow old is devastatingly simple. They die young. In the end, Cartman's pirate empire crumbles under the weight of his hubris. When it comes to diabolical behavior, Stewie Griffin never disappoints. But in this episode, he takes his madness to a whole new level. Like, what's more evil than being a conniving baby bent on world domination, creating an evil Stewie who's even worse than you? Let's just say this clone has no limits, no filter, and no conscience. So, the episode begins with Brian shading poor old Stewie about losing his edge when it came to being evil, especially since he hasn't been blowing things up or plotting to take over the world.
Yeah, you're losing it, man. You're losing your edge.
Oh, you don't want to rile up Stewie in that manner. You know he's definitely gonna do something crazy. Well, that's exactly what Stewie did, as he went over the top to prove Brian wrong.
So I built a concentrated neural enhancement device designed to boost my evil side.
But here's where things go horribly, or hilariously, depending on your perspective, wrong. Stewie accidentally creates his own nemesis instead of making himself more evil. Oh, and that clone is gonna kick his ass.
Good lord! I am a genius! My machine did work. It created an evil clone of me.
He probably doesn't know that he's in for a whole lot of trouble. Well, the celebration was short-lived as evil Stewie went on a trail of rampage. This is where Stewie needs to up his game, as his calculated mischief falls short of evil Stewie's machination. In fact, the chaos was so wild that at some point, evil Stewie attempted to take out Brian. In one scene, evil Stewie confronts Stewie's sense of superiority by mocking his meticulous nature.
What are they doing down there? They're like leg hands!
Stewie insists on studying the clone, hoping to learn how to channel this unfiltered malevolence into himself. But it quickly becomes clear that evil Stewie can't be controlled. He's not a tool for research, he's a threat. The climax of the episode pits Stewie and evil Stewie against one another in a battle of wits and survival. Brian finds himself caught in the crossfire, unsure which Stewie to trust.
Brian, it's me, Stewie. Shoot him! No, Brian, you know me. Look at me.
In the end, Brian cleverly resolves the conflict by tricking the clone, ensuring the real Stewie survives. But let's not forget, this entire mess started because Stewie wanted to prove he hadn't lost his evil edge. That right there is peak Stewie Griffin. In this next episode, we see another of Eric Cartman's evil acts. And this time the recipients are no other than gingers. Oh, he sure hates those guys. Well, it all began when Eric delivers a speech at school where he labeled kids with red hair, pale skin, and freckles as soulless kids. He even said they carried a disease called gingivitis. Not sure that disease is real, but how can a kid come up with such evil?
Like vampires, the ginger gene is a curse. And unless we work to rid the earth of that curse, the gingers could envelop our lives in blackness for all time.
Well, Kyle isn't having any of it, and he teams up with Stan to show Cartman a lesson on being a bully. So at night, they sneak into Eric's room and dye his hair red, bleached his skin, and even added some freckles to make the look come together. Oh, the scenes the next morning was pure gold.
I'm ginger! Help me! Help me!
The doctor's diagnosis? Permanent gingivitis.
Your son will be ginger his whole life. You might want to just put him down.
Oh, how sweet it feels to get a taste of one's medicine. But really, Doc, what happened to the whole Hippocrates oath thing? At first, Eric Cartman pleads for acceptance from his friends, but hey, he painted the stigma, so he's got to wear the emblem. For Stan and Kyle, it was pure joy as they have given him a teaser of what he's done to others.
Maybe he'll actually learn a lesson this time.
But this is Cartman after all. Instead of feeling bad, he decides to embrace his new identity and announce gingers as the superior race.
Gingers are the chosen people! The chosen race!
Oh boy, I'd give $1 to know what's going on inside his head. Soon enough, things begin to escalate as Eric organizes a ginger separatist movement. His speech has become increasingly unhinged.
We must gather together every child who is not ginger and exterminate them! We will eradicate them all with cages and torches and a pit of lava to throw them all in!
Shit! Hitler is probably taking notes on how to be truly evil. Well, the plan peaks with Eric and his ginger army kidnapping non-ginger kids, including Kyle, at the airport Hilton. Lord Cartman then declares,
Let the extermination begin! We will start with the Daywalker.
It's hard to believe this all started as a prank. It took Kyle coming out to Eric for the whole madness to stop. Kyle tells him everything that happened, and the truth nearly reeled him over. How about in the episode Chap Stewie, where we see some pure villainy in action? This kid took being evil to Shakespearean levels, and we have to stand. The whole act was so chilling that we would rank it as one of the most evil moves. Because what could make you decide to manipulate time travel and off yourself? Well, what really happened was that Stewie was having a temper tantrum, which resulted in him being given a timeout. Well, with the anger reaching a boiling point, he decides that he's done with the Griffins and decides to take action. Now, what's the normal kid thing to do? Leave home. Yeah, well, he doesn't. Rather, he decided to rebuild his time machine and go back to before he was born. Well, his logic was that the Griffins don't deserve his genius.
Look, Brian, I need this machine to alter the past for the better. I'm going to break up Lois and the Fat Man before they can conceive me.
This isn't just petty, it's horrifying. Stewie isn't running away from home. He's trying to undo his life by tearing his parents apart. Once he travels to the past, Stewie wastes no time in sowing chaos. His first scheme? Financial sabotage. He maxes out Lois's credit card on vibrators, hoping to spark a fight.
Peter, there's an open box in the kitchen addressed to me with nothing inside.
Yeah, when I opened it up, it was empty.
Manipulative? Yes. But Stewie quickly learns that Peter and Lois are harder to break than he anticipated. When his initial attempts fail, Stewie decides to take it a notch higher. This time, he plants false evidence to frame Lois for donating Peter's beloved porn collection to Goodwill, and even spray paints Vile Woman on their bedroom wall.
That wasn't me. Must have been one of the kids.
That's ridiculous, Peter. Chris can't write, and we don't allow Meg upstairs.
Stewie's tactics are cruel and calculated. He doesn't just want to separate his parents, he wants them to tear each other apart. Finally, Stewie succeeds in causing a rift so severe that Peter decides to leave. As Peter packs his things, Stewie watches with a chilling mix of satisfaction and regret.
It's working. I'm fading away.
But here's the thing. Stewie isn't just erasing himself, he's also erasing every relationship, every moment of happiness, and every shred of connection his parents have built. That's not just evil, it's tragic. In the alternate timeline, Stewie is reborn into a wealthy British family, complete with servants and a cold, detached upbringing. At first, he revels in the luxury, but it doesn't take long for the loneliness to sink in.
I miss my family. My dumb family.
For someone as self-centered as Stewie, realizing he needs the Griffins is a rare moment of vulnerability, but even his regret doesn't erase the harm he's caused. In the end, Stewie uses the Oxford Physics Lab to rebuild his time machine and undo his meddling, but not before leaving British Stewie to fend for himself.
You bastard, you'll burn in hell!
Stewie's cruelty extends even to himself, proving that his villainy knows no bounds. His actions in Chap Stewie aren't just evil, they're deeply personal. From manipulating his parents to destroying his own alternate self, Stewie's willingness to go to such extremes solidifies his place as one of TV's most chillingly complex characters. It all begins with one of those gut-wrenching Sarah McLachlan commercials. You know, The ones where abandoned crack babies are shown crying in hospital wards? While Kyle looks horrified, Eric's wheels are already turning. Only Eric could watch a charity ad and think, how can I profit from this? Soon after, Kyle finds Eric volunteering at the hospital, but something doesn't add up. As Eric is filming the babies, Kyle demands an explanation, and all Eric could say was,
We fill a little bowl with crack, we let the crack babies fight over it, and we put it up on the internet.
yes, Cartman has officially entered the sports management business with crack-addicted infants. Reminds me of those chicken fights in Southeast Asia. Despite all of Kyle's initial protests, Eric was able to win him over with one irresistible pitch.
We're swimming in cash cow.
And it actually helps the crack babies.
Oh, and there's also bacon pancakes at Denny's every night. The lure of the good life is enough to make Kyle stay. But as the operation grows, cracks, pun intended, begin to show. Eric reveals that EA Sports is buying the rights to their sport, but the crack babies won't be paid.
Crack baby players can't make a salary based on the rules.
Welcome to the Crack Baby Athletic Association. Meanwhile, the gang was also working towards hiring Slash for a halftime show. But when they can't find him, they learn the truth. Slash is a fictional character. The revelation hits harder than anything Cartman's ever done.
But then, who played at my 8th birthday party?
When EA Sports finalizes their deal, Eric and Kyle realize they've been duped. EA keeps the money while the crack babies get nothing. A furious Kyle tries to salvage the situation, proposing a $300,000 orphanage for the babies. Cartman's response?
It's like moral Teflon!
Nothing screams philanthropy like PR spin. In the end, the boys are kicked out of EA's offices, and their dreams of wealth vanish. For Kyle, it was a sad moment as he feels bad for the crack babies, but luckily enough, they find a mysterious orphanage. Was it Eric? Slash? Or maybe the Dutch saint Wunterslausch? South Park's absurdity knows no bounds. By the end, it's hard to tell what's more outrageous, crack baby basketball or that hot tub full of KFC gravy. In the episode, Stewie is Enceinte, we see Stewie kinda like devolve into a subhuman or some mindless and questionable character. For real, this guy decided to impregnate himself with Brian's DNA, all in a bid to ensure that they remain close. What begins as a bid to ensure that they remain close just turns into something else. So, the whole thing begins when Stewie starts to feel jealous that Brian is hanging out more with Lois and Peter rather than him. So he decided to take matters into his own hands. With such an outrageous plan.
Babies save relationships. That's how Brian and I are going to improve our relationship. We're going to have a baby.
It's so funny that only Stewie could think in that direction, because how did he think that would fix things? Well, maybe if Brian has also tried to listen, he wouldn't have gone ahead with his plan. So, after getting Brian's DNA, of course he didn't agree to it, Stewie uses his self-built fertilization device to impregnate himself.
All right, Rupert, the fertilization device is complete. This will impregnate me with the child that will bring Brian and me back together.
Way to go, Einstein. Oh, and the result was horrifying to Brian once he found out.
What have you done?
I think you mean, what have we done? What? Brian, we're pregnant.
Like the whole logic behind that action was so twisted. To Stewie, he has done nothing wrong, and he's only just trying to be a better partner. For real, if manipulation were an Olympic sport, Stewie would have a gold medal. As the pregnancy progressed, the whole situation grew increasingly horrible. Stewie went from bizarre cravings to erratic mood swings.
Hey, I need you to take me to the doctor for my prenatal vitamins. Oh, and while I'm pregnant, I'm going to need you to change the cat litter.
We don't have a cat.
Stewie's demands are less about the baby and more about controlling Brian. It's not a partnership, it's psychological warfare. The whole thing gets to the roof when Stewie goes into labor. But sadly enough, they didn't get to the hospital before Stewie starts delivering Brian's hybrid babies.
And they're coming out of everywhere! Ah, kill me! This hurts too much!
For once, Stewie experiences real consequences for his actions, though it's doubtful he learns anything from them. Once the babies are born, Stewie acts like he's all into the fantasy of parenthood. He even assigns them names like Jack and Rose. But it doesn't take long for the reality of parenting to set in, and both Stewie and Brian quickly realize they're in over their heads.
Hey, stop squirming in there.
This one's bones all feel loose.
And I think that one is blind.
In the end, Stewie and Brian abandon their offspring at a shelter, mutually agreeing the entire ordeal was a mistake.
How attached to them are you?
Not at all.
Stewie's complete indifference to the babies he fought so hard to create underscores his villainy. For him, they were never living beings. They were tools in a twisted experiment. One thing we have to give to South Park is how it understands what it takes to make a dark and absurd situation kinda hilarious. And most times, you would always find Cartman at the center of such events. Take a look at the episode The Poor Kid, where Cartman ensures that he doesn't earn the title of being the poorest in the school. It all starts when Kenny's parents are arrested for running a meth lab, leaving Kenny and his siblings at the mercy of Child Protective Services.
No more babies! Don't take my babies!
Now please look at the camera and say, I'm white trash and I'm in trouble.
Sheesh, that just had to be embarrassing for Kenny, especially since they'd be placed in a foster home. Kenny and his siblings are placed in a foster home where the parents are Dr. Pepper enthusiasts, and it's like their whole personality.
You will drink only agnostic beverages. Dr. Pepper and Diet Dr. Pepper. Because what flavor is it? It is neither root beer nor cola.
Because when life gives you existential uncertainty, you drink Dr. Pepper. Meanwhile, at South Park Elementary, Cartman's on the edge, as he's now the newest, poorest kid in school, and that means he might get piled on, especially by Kyle. But you know it's Cartman. He's definitely going to look for a way to deflect.
Oh, he's gonna have such a field day, that heartless Jew!
Instead of showing any empathy for Kenny's situation, Cartman spirals into self-pity, turning the episode into a comedic showcase of his insecurity. So what evil thing can he do? Well, Cartman throws himself into over-the-top antics to avoid being labeled as poor. He doesn't care who gets hurt in the process, as long as he's the culprit.
Let's hear it for Jacob Hallery, guys! His mom is so poor she cuts coupons out to be institutionalized!
Now, that's low for evil standards. Well, only Cartman could do something so sinister anyways. By the end of the episode, Child Protective Services discovers that Kenny's foster parents have bizarre habits. So they force Kenny and Karen to return home. This must be some sort of relief for Cartman, who is now off the poor kid leaderboard.
The day's looking brighter, gray skies are turning blue. 'Cause I'm not, he's not, the poor kid is key.
Let's just say that Stewie Griffin is the perfect embodiment of unfiltered evil packed into a pint-sized villain. For real, how can someone be so tiny and yet pack so much evil in their heart? It even gets worse in this episode, where he goes beyond just threats and actually kills Lois, a promise that he has made for a while. Now, this one gets dark very fast. So the episode starts with Lois's birthday, and everyone is giving her a gift. However, aside from the mundane gifts from Peter, Meg, and Chris, Brian decides to surprise her by giving her 2 tickets on a cruise ship.
2 tickets for a cruise? Brian, this is wonderful.
What the hell?
Dick?
Hey, what is this? We agreed on a $20 limit. We set a cap, you jerk.
Are you trying to make us look bad, you son of a bitch?
Way to go, Brian. Still trying to impress Lois, I see. Anyways, on the day of the trip, Stewie is surprised to find out that he wasn't going on the trip with them.
Stewie, Peter and Lois aren't taking you with them. They've already boarded.
That statement alone was enough to tip Stewie over the edge, as he began to plot ways he was going to torture Lois.
I'll teach that hussy to go on a boat ride without me. When she returns, I'm going to put bamboo splinters under all her fingernails.
Yo, chill out, Stewie. This is your mother, for crying out loud. But how is he going to get on the ship to undertake his plans? Well, leave that to Stewie, who somehow finds a way to board the ship and begin his plot to take out Lois. He finds Lois alone and approaches her with a wry look. Such a sinister move to make.
Hello, Mother.
Stewie? What the hell are you... How did you get here?
I guess Lois doesn't know what her 1-year-old kid is capable of.
What are you... What are you doing with a gun?
Something I should have done a very long time ago.
And just like that, Stewie kills Lois. Now, Stewie has always been diabolical, yeah? But this moment crosses a line. Like, it's so shocking, especially since we get to see Stewie's first truly successful murder attempt. It's unflinching and horrifying, but yet, you can't even look away. After a futile search for Lois, who went over, it was probably concluded that she was a victim of falling overboard the cruise ship. A sad end to a beautiful soul. Psych. Anyway, the loss of Lois becomes obvious at the Griffins as a uselessness hangs over their heads, maybe apart from Stewie, who revels in his newfound position and steps towards his ultimate goal of world domination. Stewie doesn't just move on, he thrives. Watching him meticulously construct his empire while the family grieves adds an extra layer of darkness. It's a reminder that Stewie isn't just a mischievous toddler, he's a legitimate threat. It even gets crazy that only one person suspected Stewie of the murder.
Stewie, did you kill Lois?
Of course I didn't, Brian.
For the rest, it was a case of disappearance, the loss of a wife and mother for over 1 year. In fact, it gets to a point in the episode that Peter becomes the prime suspect of the whole thing.
Mr. Griffin, do you deny killing your wife?
Of course I deny it. I loved my wife, and I certainly think I'd remember killing her.
Sheesh, Stewie is really diabolical. How's he not owning up to killing his mother? And he's so chill with his dad taking the fall. Next up is another episode where Eric Cartman just shows us that he's sheer evil. In the episode Tonsil Trouble, Eric's troubles begin with the promise of ice cream, but it is the way he was able to still bring out some diabolical acts that put this episode as one of his most evil moments. In the episode, Eric has some tonsil stones, and he was convinced to take it out with the bribe of ice cream. However, instead of getting a freebie of goodness, he gets a bombshell.
Eric, I'm afraid that we've accidentally infected you with the AIDS virus.
Eric's response is predictably over the top.
You gave me AIDS and you're sorry?
My baby has HIV!
The poor guy can't catch a break. He just wanted some ice cream, and now he's dealing with the world's most retro disease. Well, in true South Park fashion, the school decides to hold an assembly to encourage support for Eric. What's better than letting everyone know his predicament? However, Kyle's inability to keep a straight face derails any goodwill. His smirk doesn't go unnoticed, and Eric storms out enraged.
This isn't a time for funny jokes. I'm gonna die.
To be fair, it's not every day your mortal enemy gets taken down by a 1 in a billion medical mistake. Still, Kyle maybe saved the irony for later, but Eric doesn't just sulk. Instead, he gets revenge. So he calls on his sidekick, Butters, to help him sneak into Kyle's room. Oh, and he does the darndest thing ever. He injects Kyle with HIV. Yes, actual HIV. Oh, and that's not a good look, yeah. This gets Kyle so mad, but what does Eric say?
Guess it isn't so funny now, is it?
Of course, you would expect Kyle to be furious, and even rightly so. Leave it to Eric to treat life-threatening illnesses as petty payback. Seriously, how has he not been punched yet? Things take a drastic turn as Kyle declares all-out war on Eric, smashing his Xbox and threatening to destroy everything he owns.
Not the Xbox, Cal. Not the Wait a second. I'm sorry I gave you HIV, all right? Just give me a chance, and I can cure you.
In order to find a cure, Kyle finally agrees to follow Eric to Magic Johnson's, as they believe he holds the key to their survival. Once they get to Magic's house, the truth comes out.
You sleep with money. Every night?
It turns out, Magic's bizarre habit of sleeping surrounded by cash was the cure. Weird, right? After the new discovery, scientists then inject large amounts of money into Kyle's bloodstream, miraculously curing him. Leave it to South Park to turn a deadly virus into an absurd capitalist metaphor. Apparently, the real cure for HIV is having enough cash to swim in. In the end, Cartman and Kyle are hailed as heroes for curing AIDS, but Kyle refuses to let bygones be bygones.
Oh, stop! We're not friends! He's the one who infected me with AIDS!
To make matters worse, the ceremony ends with Jimmy Buffett singing Cure Burger in Paradise. Jimmy, you didn't help at the AIDS benefit, and you're so not helping now. Please, stop. So, what do you think? Does Stewie Griffin beat Eric Cartman at being evil? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, hit like, subscribe, and that little bell notification so you never miss an episode of Calm Casts. We'll see you on the next video.